Hello there. What's going on, everybody? Today we're going to be breaking down the Phase 1 clone troopers for Star Wars Legion. Now, I've been doing a series of unit breakdowns to kind of give some insight into these units, and I'm going to do that today with the Phase 1s. Also, if you are new here, there is still time left to enter to win the $25 Amazon gift card giveaway. You just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. It's as simple as that. That should be announced within the next couple of days, so make sure you watch my videos all the way till the end. All right. That being said, let's go ahead and jump into Phase 1 Clone Troopers. And, well, by the way, actually, before I jump into that, let me plug the merch again, too. We've got the new face shields up, and I'm going to show you the Ahsoka one right here. This one is super awesome. It's got the Leiku patterns on the back and sides, and like the fulcrum symbol on the front. You can find links to that, as well as lots of other masks and merchandise and shirts all right down there. Very cool stuff. All right. So now, let's go ahead and break down the Phase 1 Clone Troopers. Now, this was the first, core unit for the clones. The clones are one of the newer factions, so they don't really have quite as much stuff available, and that's obviously going to play a part in this video because there's limits to how much I can break this unit down and how much I can talk about different ways to run it because, well, frankly, right now, the clones are a newer faction, and there's just not as much stuff available. However, there's some more things coming, some things we can kind of talk around a little bit, but also one reason I want to talk about the Phase 1 Clone Troopers in particular is that we've also got Phase 2 Clone Troopers out right now. And there's a lot of things going on with the Phase 2 Clone Troopers. For one, a lot of people say, well, they're completely better than the Phase 1s. And I'm like, oh, maybe. I mean, they're more expensive also. But the other thing is you can't find Phase 2s anywhere. So part of my goal for this video is to tell you some of the great things about Phase 1 Clone Troopers and why it's okay if you don't run Phase 2 Clone Troopers. You may not even want to run Phase 2 Clone Troopers in all of your clone builds. Obviously, Phase 2 Clone Troopers are going to be a little bit better, but they're also more expensive, right? So, like, big differences here. The main big difference between the Phase 1s and the Phase 2s is they don't have the courage value of 2, and they don't get a free surge token each turn. But outside of that, Phase 1 Clone Troopers are they're very, very close to being as good. So that's what we're going to be talking about. So Phase 1s, basically, they're 52 points, so they're the most expensive core in the game at the time of them coming out, and the Phase 2s have them beat, right? You're still getting 4 minis. They're kind of like the best of both worlds. So if you only play Rebels and Empire and you're still kind of new, you haven't jumped into Clone Wars yet, this is your elite unit, right? They spent billions and billions of dollars to create this army, and there was a lot of time went into breeding these guys to be the best, the best warriors they could possibly be, and that's kind of reflected in what they have here. So, like the Rebels, they have a red die for their ranged attack. I mean, black die for their ranged attack. I'm not even going to edit that out. I'll leave that in. But yeah, like the Rebels, they have the black die for their range. They have a pretty solid ranged attack for a base level core. But like the Empire, they've got that plastoid armor, so they've got that red defense die. They've got only 1 health and 1 courage, like many core do. They do have standard core upgrades, as in the heavy, the personnel, the equipment, and the grenades, and their speed 2. Now, they don't have any surge, and that's going to be playing into part of the clones aspect, is that surge tokens were a new token type that came out in the Clone Wars core set, and the clones as a faction have lots of ways to give surge tokens to this unit and to lots of other units, and surge tokens are tokens that you can spend to convert one single surge result to either a defense or a hit, respectively. They don't upconvert to crits, however, but yeah, surge tokens are great. Clone Troopers have ways to get them, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But the really nice thing they get is fire support. Now, fire support is one of those things that's very situational, but really cool when you absolutely need it. And so, basically, if another friendly unit performs a ranged attack, if you have a face-up order token, you can flip that face-up order token face down and have every mini in your unit contribute a valid weapon to that attack. So really, really cool. Basically, you can have 2 units team up together to attack. And the beautiful thing about that is, even though like Phase 1 Clone Troopers don't have a offensive surge, if the attacking unit does, they get to use that other unit's surge, and we'll talk a little bit more about that also as we go on. But there's a lot of cool ways to actually employ fire support to make it really cool. And now I also want to talk about fire support as a mechanic. It's one of those mechanics I didn't like initially. The main reason was, okay, so I can have a bigger dice pool on a single attack, but at a cost. And I didn't like the cost, because the cost is twofold. First off, I have to have given them a face-up order token in the first place. So that already is a type of cost, because it's face-up order tokens aren't the easiest to give, right? They're part of your command. Part of your command card. There's no entourage yet for clones, so there's no way to get, extra bonus free ones, willy-nilly. You just can't do that. So there's very hard limits on how many face-up order tokens you can give in the first place. So that's already a limiting factor. But on top of that, when you flip this over, you don't even get to activate the unit. Now, they're already the most expensive core unit in the game outside of Phase 2s. They're very expensive, especially once you start putting upgrades on them. So to flip over something that could be a 100-point unit, that without even activating it, you're missing out on actions. So I wasn't a big fan of that. Alternative, and one more thing is that you also miss out on suppression, because if I had two units, one unit shoot and then another unit shoot separately, well, that's two suppression versus one unit shoot and then this guy contributes to the same thing, because it's still only one attack, so there's only one suppression. So those were reasons I didn't like it, but just because it has it doesn't mean you have to use it. And that's one of the things that, having played them more, I realized fire support is great when you need it. When Darth Vader is getting very, very close, and you don't have enough dice to kill him with the unit who's activating right now, but you've got some clones, with all their extra upgrades and their weapons and their extra minis that are all going to add a weapon to this attack pool. Oh, and by the way, maybe you have surge to hit already, so it makes that a whole thing way, way better. Like, all of that really works out. And the last thing about regular Phase 1 clone troopers I want to talk about is their character type. They're not just a trooper, they're a clone trooper. Now, clone troopers are not talked about on this card, but they're in the rulebook, and clone troopers are one other thing that makes clones so amazing, in that clone troopers can share green tokens. Now, I said green tokens. That means the new surge tokens are green, but that also means aim and dodge. But that also means standby, and that's a big deal. Being able to share standby tokens is amazing, and there's not really a time limit on when you share these. They can just share them at any time, which means they have a amazing way to get past the whole standby mechanic of, oh, I can just shoot you at range 4 and put a suppression on you and you lose your standby. No, because my standby is actually being held by this other dude behind the wall over here. So it allows you to really kind of have a clone that's hidden in complete safety behind terrain, take a whole bunch of tokens, and then just share them out to other clones as needed. And a suppression isn't going to stop those other clones. So the clone trooper ability is really, really nice. And of course, being able to share dodges and surges and aims are also great. Aims is my favorite thing to actually share, because it's something you can do more reliably. Standby depends on the terrain, depends on the mission. If you have to be aggressive, you're probably not doing standby as much. If you're out activated, you might not be doing standby, or you might be doing standby a little more. But if you're out activating your opponent, you might not be doing it as much. But aim's something I do most of the time, because I can aim a lot, and we're going to see some more mechanics that show up as part of why I like to aim. So, of course, because unless you reroll dice, right? so let's look at what do you get with the Phase 1 clones, right? Your first personnel. We're going to look at personnel options first. In either the Phase 1 clone expansion or in the core box, you're going to get the Phase 1 clone trooper unit, and it just gives you an extra mini. Like every core gets, you can get just a regular extra mini, no problem. There are 13 points, though, so that kind of tells you about how much points go into these, because these are really, really highly trained and well-armed soldiers. In the Phase 1 clone trooper expansion pack, we're going to get some more new options. So one of those is going to be the Phase 1 clone captain. This one's really nice for a number of reasons. Now it's 17 points. It does become the leader of the unit, and it does two different things. First off, it gives you a training upgrade option. Training is one of the other things that Phase 2s have that Phase 1s don't have, and this is one of the big reasons why I say, hey, don't worry if you can't get Phase 2s for right now, because you can always put a Phase 1 clone captain on your Phase 1s and now they have one of those key aspects that the Phase 2s couldn't have. I mean, that the Phase 2s had that the Phase 1s normally couldn't have. But this came out later. So yeah, the training upgrade option is great. And it also has the exhaustible. Again, he's got the exhaustible up there, and that's going to apply to what's below here. When you activate, you can't remove suppression tokens or cannot or be suppressed during this activation. Now you can panic. Now we've talked about this with in all of the captain. So Rebels have one, and the Empire has one. The droids actually don't have one exactly like this. The droids version is different because droids function differently. But like all of the captain personnel options that we've got, this ability works the same. In that it's amazing when you absolutely need it, because especially like on turn 6, you activate this, you're not going to be able to rally and remove your tokens, but at the same time, you're also not going to be suppressed. You're not going to lose that action. This is important with the Phase 1 clones because they only got that one suppression, so if it's the last turn of the game and you need to get that objective or need to get to safety or something like that, you can tap this guy and just say, all right, fine, I'm not going to risk it. I'm not going to. It's especially good if you've got 2 suppression, or maybe 3 suppression, and hopefully you're still within your leader courage bubble. But you can panic, so this isn't going to work if you've got 8 suppression, right? But you can, however, avoid the loss of an action by being suppressed. Now, if you do use this, you're going to have a problem next turn, right? Because you're not going to have a chance to rally. You will still remove a suppression at the end of the round, because the only time you can't remove suppression is when you're activating. But this is so that's what makes this especially good for turn 6, right? Or if you're playing a tournament game and it's running short, whatever the last round of the game happens to be. But the bigger thing about this one is the training option, because there's some really good training options, and it's an upgrade slot that this unit did not have already. So there's a couple. I'm not talking about every single one, but I'll talk about a couple. Hunter can be nice because it gives you a free aim token, and I certainly like getting aim tokens. Now, I normally don't take Hunter on core units as much. A lot of times I go after, I'll put Hunter on somebody who's more likely to go after a big hit point unit. The reason is Hunter, a lot of times like core attack core and stuff like that. Sometimes if you're shooting somebody that's lost a mini but doesn't have a wound token on them, they're not considered wounded, right? So if I'm shooting stormtroopers, I'm never going to be able to trigger Hunter. Hunter only can work on units that actually have more than 1 hit point per mini. So Hunter is good if you're attacking a leader or an operative or a really bigger type of or vehicle or something like Wookiees that have multiple hit points each. Something like that makes Hunter really good because they have to have a wound on them. In the case of like Royal Guard and Wookiees, though, if they take another damage before you attack them and then the mini comes off and they don't have any damage tokens on the actual unit, then Hunter goes away because the Wookiee that was bleeding died, and so you have no blood trail to track, so to speak. Right? That's thematically how this one works. But one of the reasons why you might want to consider it on this one is that when it does work, sometimes you have something that lets you take an aim token on a unit, but you happen to roll good and don't need the aim token. On clones, that's usually never a problem because you can always have somebody else share it. So it's a little better on a clone trooper because let's say I'm attacking your leader. I'm attacking Darth Vader, who's already got a wound, so I'm going to get Hunter, right? And so, you know what? I get that free aim token, and we're rolling, and I actually rolled all hits, so I'm not going to spend the aim. Or sometimes you deliberately won't spend the aim. Sometimes, what if you rolled all blanks and he's behind heavy cover? Oh, well, even if I spend the aim right now, he's probably going to cancel it, I don't want to fish for crits right now. It's more worth it for me to save the aim for my next unit. All right, so like Hunter on a clone trooper gives you a little bit more options. Endurance is another option as well. If you do end up getting suppressed and, like maybe you're sharing dodge tokens, you're playing more defensively. Again, we talked about suppression. That's one of the biggest weaknesses that the Phase 1 clones have, is that they don't have access to a whole lot of things that are removing suppression. They haven't gotten that generic upgrade, that's generic specialists upgrade kit yet. Neither have droids, whereas the Empire and the Rebels have that. They have those officers with Inspire and stuff like that. You don't have that for the clones a whole lot. It's starting to show up a little bit more with like Aayla Secura and things like that. But yeah, for endurance is definitely an option you could consider. Maybe not my favorite. Maybe not my favorite. This is one I definitely like though. Offensive push. This one's going to get you an aim token. Now, all right, we already talked about Hunter. Offensive push doesn't require that you attack, a wounded character. And it's when you're performing a move. So you can... Now, this is an exhaustible one, though, right? And so it's cheap, and the cost is great. The cost is one of the things that makes this one really good because it gets you an aim token, especially when maybe you're going to need it. There are plenty of opportunities that an aim token is a really, really big deal. We'll talk about some of the command cards later. But aim tokens are a big deal because even if you don't need it, you get to share it. So aim tokens are way better on clones than on anybody else, in my opinion. Or generally, there's like Death Troopers are actually really good with aim tokens also. But the clone's ability to share them, even if they're not needed, makes it just so much better. So I love that. I like offensive push a lot, and Overwatch is probably one of the best options. I mean, it kind of torn. Sometimes it's offensive push, sometimes it's Overwatch. But Overwatch is really, really good because this is increasing your standby range to 3. We talked about how powerful it is to be able to share standby tokens, but standby's default range is only 1 to 2, and it's not that many maps that really support a whole lot of range 2 standby. And so standby being range 1 to 3 is a huge deal, especially when you're able to share it from, when one dude takes a standby, can let anyone else trigger it that's within range. So, so Overwatch, really, really good option. One of the best options for Phase 1 clone troopers if you're going to have that training slot from that commander. The next personnel option is the Phase 1 clone specialist. This one is my favorite. And I'll tell you why. Or at least tied for favorite, because I do like Overwatch, right? But I talked about offensive push and like, hey, you can get an aim token. I've talked about how much I like aim tokens, right? The problem with offensive push is you have to move to get that free aim token, which uses one of your actions to move. So if you're suppressed, you can't do it, right? Or if you're in a position where maybe you wanted to aim twice, if you've got like a Z6 or something like that, this one can let you do that. But this one is just tap it, free aim token. And it's flexible enough that it could give you a dodge or a surge if you need to also, but I mean, I'm not taking a surge in this case. I'm taking an aim token. And also they give you an extra equipment upgrade. Now, there's very few units that I really want to run multiple equipment upgrades on, and this is not one that I really want to do that on, but okay, sure. The bigger deal for me here is the free aim token on demand. It is an exhaustible upgrade, and that does mean, hey, I may have to recover at some point, but that's okay. It's okay. Maybe I recover and stand by a turn when I'm hiding if I get into position where I want to be. But just the fact that I can take the aim token for free, even if I'm down to only one action, because that's a free action. Even if I'm suppressed, I can still get that. I can still aim and shoot. And it's especially good on turn 1 for some of the mechanics we're going to see a little bit later in the video. Now, talking about equipment, right? Some of these are going to be different if you're going to take extra equipment. I think some people might be drawn to electro binoculars because, hey, if I want to... Because I don't advise this, but I want to talk about it a little bit because I can see the logic, and I'm just going to explain why maybe I don't recommend this. Because a lot of people might say, hey, let's have a couple of naked Phase 1 clone troopers. Because they can all share tokens, it actually helps to have like 1 or 2 units that are really, really well equipped, and then a couple of units that are completely unequipped, like no upgrades whatsoever. Because their ability to share tokens is just as good as everybody else's. And so if you're using, a naked unit to generate standbys and aims and things like that to fuel the more expensive guys, then that's an awesome idea. So going with that mentality, you might think, hey, I want a Phase 1 clone trooper to run electro binoculars, so this way they can hand out aim tokens and support the other guys. Problem is, you can just take an aim action for free without having to spend 8 points on it. And then it can also... Now, obviously, electro binoculars is a little different because if that unit needs to move away from you, then, of course, you can give them an aim to take with them. Or if aims are really, really, really important for a round, you could use spotter as one action, give somebody else an aim, and then take an aim yourself. So this way you can potentially provide 2 aims in one turn. So I can see that maybe being a thing, but because it is expensive, it's 8 points. You're already spending so much on the clones anyway. I generally kind of shy away from this one. What's a lot cheaper and kind of nice sometimes is recon intel. Recon intel can be a really nice option. And I'm not talking about every equipment option in here. There are a lot of things that are going to be situational. But if you're running 2 upgrades, Recon Intel makes for a good second one because it's so cheap and it's a nice little thing. Especially not knowing the board you're going to be set up or where you're going to be if you need to get out of the way. And especially now with the big tanks, right? Maybe you need to make room for the big tank. And so, Recon Intel can make deployment a little bit more convenient there, but it also helps you get into position. And if you are running Tactical 1 or something like that, you can potentially exhaust that during your scout move as well if you needed to have an aim for first turn. But not as crucial because Rex has some stuff that can also help you get a scout move. Targeting scopes is probably my favorite equipment to put on the clones. I've talked about aim, and this is one of the reasons. This is one of those reasons. Now, targeting scopes has been kind of like 6 points for just a single extra reroll. I'm like, it's not that great, when the game was younger. But now, in the case of clones, considering that they can share aim tokens, I put targeting scopes on one guy. He ends up spending aims from you and from you and from you. Oh, and then he then spends your standby and then spends another aim later on. So you can really get your money's worth on targeting scopes on a Phase 1 clone. I think it's a really cool option. So I think targeting scopes is probably for your money the best upgrade to put on a Phase 1 clone that plans to shoot. Probably not on one of your bare bones naked Phase 1 clones, but on one of your ones that plans to shoot. And as far as grenades go, I'm going to fall back to my default position on everybody, even though they came with the smoke grenades and stuff like that. Fragmentation Grenade is really the only way. Because it gives you surge to crit. I mean, it's doing 2 things. It's upgrading your die pool from red to black. I mean, from black to red. So that's an upgrade, and that's great. That's cool. But the ability to gain surge to crit is so big on a unit that has no surges at all. It's a pretty big deal. So I absolutely love the Fragmentation Grenades. Totally love them. And again, this is something that if you do have to be range 1 though. You do have to be range 1, and that's dangerous, but that's the way grenades tend to work. So I'm all for all the other grenades. Don't impress me. This one impresses me the most, and it's the best grenade in the game as far as I'm concerned. All right, so let's talk about heavies. We have 2 heavies that that originally came with the Phase 1s, and then we have 2 more that came with the Phase 1 Clone Trooper expansion box. So first I'm going to talk about the RPS 6 Phase 1 Trooper. This is your basic anti-armor option. This came in the core box, the Clone Wars core box, as well as the Phase 1 expansion. Now, this one was a little interesting for me because I was like, well, why did we get Impact? Because we didn't have any vehicles when the Clone Wars first came out. I'm like, do they really need... I mean, I guess maybe if they're going cross-faction, but it didn't seem to make that much sense with me. I'm like, okay, but a lot of people have some kind of rocket launcher, so I guess that's fine. It is cumbersome, so you're not going to be able to move and shoot at the same time, which can work if you're doing standby. So that's actually not terrible. It's got a decent little dice pool of 3 dice, 1 of each color. It's got the little rainbow there, so it's a respectable dice pool. It's range 2 to 4, so you won't be able to use it at close range, but it does give you a range 4 option, and that is pretty cool. And it's got impact, so if you are facing up against vehicles, it's nice. Now, a cool thing about this is if you activate a standby or something like that, you can always split fire. It's a good option for splitting fire because 3 dice against a target that's range 4 away. Maybe you got a sniper out there that's messing with you a little bit. Now, if there's a really far positioned sniper, you're not going to be able to move and fire this one, though, because it is cumbersome. But as with any cumbersome weapon, you can always move and stand by and still fire your weapon. So it's good for that. But I want to point out something that's actually kind of nice about this one, is that this one does not have that exhaust symbol on there. So like a lot of core units anti-armor option, they almost all have an exhaustible ability, and it's nice to see one that doesn't, because this one you could fire over and over again. So it's not half bad. But I don't pick it because my favorite's coming up next. It's the Z6. All right, it's my favorite option for the Rebels, and it's my favorite option for the clones because I'm a luck I'm a luck monger. I am hoping, above hope, that the Z6 rolls well for me. And, you have the highest ceiling on the Z6, but what makes the Z6 really good on the Phase 1 Clone Troopers, even better than on the Rebels, is the fact that if you've taken scopes and the number of rerolls you're able to get, okay, it's very likely that you have a reasonable chance of actually having your black dice from your basic clones actually turn up pretty good. They have a pretty good chance of turning up good. You're more likely to need to reroll these white dice. And if you have access to multiple aim tokens, whether they're from your specialist or from from tactical 1, or you took an aim action, or your buddies near you have aim tokens, all your other clones, because again we can share green tokens. This is a way to really have a chance to maximize that. So because a very common clone playstyle involves having access to multiple aim tokens, that's why I suggest scopes, so you can get reroll 3 dice for each aim. You can really fish for crits if you need to with this, or just make sure you can end up with 11 dice, 11 hits from a core unit. That's really something. It's really amazing. So I like that, and that's and while this one's great, this one's really something. So I like that. Okay, now the 2 new core options we have change up ranges a little bit. We've got the DP-23, which is now our close range option. That's going to be range 1 to 2 only. So again, you can't shoot this at range 3, so this is going to require you getting closer, which is another reason why it's nice to have those grenades, because again, if you're running a DP-23, the frag grenades are a real good option. You don't have to put grenades on every clone trooper build, but if you're running a DP-23, there's a very realistic chance that you will face combat at range 1, and it'll be really good for you if you've got those frag grenades. Also point out, if you've got frag grenades and somebody behind you who's farther away happens to have a face-up order token, they can use fire support if they're a phase 1 clone, and then they can fire support into you, and now all of those dice get surged to crit because you get the frag in the pool. So DP-23 is somebody who's likely to put you in that kind of position where you're getting up close, and they do have 3 dice. It's pretty nice, 2 black and a white, but they have Pierce. And Pierce is one of those keywords that does not appear everywhere. It's actually a pretty rare keyword, but it's a very good keyword. It's a very good keyword. It's also nice to see this guy contribute his dice to a different attack pool if you're using fire support, because if the weapon is in the pool, so that means if he contributes his weapon to via fire support to a different attack pool, then that's gonna gain Pierce as well. So yeah, the DP-23 is pretty nice. When I have run this guy, I find like a lot of range 2 weapons, it's dangerous to try to get in range, because if you do start charging enemy positions, you end up losing some miniatures by the time you get there. So I'm not as crazy about this guy, but there are some tricks to make him a little bit more threatening with Rex, which we'll talk about a little later. And then we have a DC-15 Phase 1 clone trooper. This one is going to be very much kind of like the Imperial sniper that you saw in with the Stormtrooper expansion. That's going to be your range 1 to 4, 2 red dice, which is nice. And again, red dice are going to be really good for the clones since they have no surge. They need to count on those natural hit results, and they're going to be able to have a pretty good chance of rolling that here. And in the case they do get a surge, they've got critical 1 here. So this is worthwhile to either split fire, because you're going to reliably get hopefully 2 damage, or combine with your whole attack pool, you have 2 more damage, and you got critical 1, so that's less surge tokens you have to spend. So this is pretty nice in that aspect as well. So I think that is all of our upgrade options. I want to talk about some other things that are going to pair well with the Phase 1s. So we don't have that many commander options right now. So again, that's one of the things that limits this video. I'll talk a little bit about both, but Rex is going to be the ideal commander for clones. He is amazing. First off, he's also cheaper, which works into fitting more clones into your list. He's got some cool things that we're going to talk about, but first off, he is a clone trooper. So anything that Rex can share all the stuff with the clones, and they can all share stuff with him. That's an important aspect. Another thing that makes Rex work so well with the clones is he's got surge to crit. He has surge to crit. So if any of the clones want to fire support on his target, all their dice goes into his attack pool and gains surge to crit. So that's really nice as well. Uh, and, I mean, and he's got a lot of things that make him great, but Scouting Party is kind of cool because it allows you to move two clones a little farther up ahead on top of that, and he has Tactical 1 built into him, so he gets an aim every time he moves, which, again, he's going to start with 1 because he is Rex. He's got Scout 1, so he gets a free move right there. Because Tactical doesn't require it to be a move action, just a move. So Speed X moves trigger Tactical 1. And so but then if he moves again, so he can start off with 2, he can scout, get a free aim from that, then activate early and get another, he can even move twice if he just wanted to have tokens to share with the boys, because he's only range 1 to 2. So if he wanted to just have a bunch of tokens to share for your farther range folks, he can just generate a whole lot of tokens to share. So he's great for that. Another good thing about, like, if you're running Rex or any commander, aggressive tactics, great option. This is one of those ways to get surge tokens. Now, all factions have access to this one now, but because it's not faction locked, but it came out with the Clone Wars core set, and it works best with the Clone Wars factions. This is a very, very, very good card for Rex to equip. If you're running Obi-Wan, I mean, Obi-Wan's all right. He was the one that came with the clones, and he kind of plays more of a protector role for the clones. So he's going to try to, he's going to try and guardian them and things like that. So he's kind of cool with that. I don't think he synergizes as well with the clones as Rex does, but he still has some cool synergies. If you are running Obi-Wan, he's got some cool Force upgrades that can work. So you can give Obi-Wan Inspire, which is something that faction really needs. And so Hope is going to be something you might want to consider with Obi-Wan if you're running a lot of clones. Or Force Guidance is a possibility. Again, Obi-Wan can also run aggressive tactics. So that one, if you're running aggressive tactics on Obi-Wan, you probably don't need Force Guidance. But it is an option. It gets you even more Surge tokens out there. Kind of helps make up for the fact that maybe you don't have Phase 2s yet, because you can put out a lot of Surge that way, and since they can all share it, you can really be very efficient with it and where it's needed most. So I'm a big fan of that. Also, Padme. While we don't have a full 100% Padme spoiler yet, Padme looks like she's going to actually work pretty well with clones as well. She has the ability to let people use her tokens, so she can kind of participate in that type of play style. And she has some other things where she can hand off orders and just different things that the clones are going to work well with. But we'll probably be able to talk more about this once we get 100% a full Padme spoiler, a full Padme reveal. Hopefully that should be coming pretty soon too, because everything's kind of getting back into motion, and we're hoping to see some more upgrade articles and spoiler articles pretty soon from Fantasy Flight. Now I want to talk about some of the vehicles, some of the supports. In this case, I'm talking about the Bark, but it really looks like it will apply to the ATRT when that comes out as well. Because Barks came with the core set, and one of the really good uses for a Bark is to help with fire support from clones. Because the Bark, it doesn't have the best offense, but what's important about the Bark is it can move. You can get into position pretty well easily because it's got Speeder 1, it's Speed 3 or 2 if you've got the sidecar equipped, but it's got Surge to hit baked in. So in those cases where you don't have a whole lot of Surge, if you want to issue some face-up orders to your clones and have the Bark Speeder kind of circle around and get a shot and then have them fire support in, all of their dice are now going to gain that offensive Surge. So it's really good for, like, if you got a clone with Z6, a Phase 1 clone with Z6 and a face-up order ready to throw out fire support and like 11 extra dice, well then have even a naked, unequipped Bark still serves as a really, really hard-hitting platform if you channel clones fire support through it because of that offensive surge to hit. So that's something, and again, ATRTs have the same thing. They have the offensive surge to hit. But yeah, so that's just a way to kind of leverage Barks to kind of support them, and I kind of dig them for that particular thing. Now, I also think Barks will probably be a little bit better now that we got Vital Assets too, so that's something to think about. Let's talk about command cards, because command cards look really, really good. So my favorite one, I got to do my favorite one first, and this is really the reason why I love having aim tokens, especially the ability to get aim tokens on the first turn, is Take That Clankers. Rex's 2-pip. Now, look, I've already said Rex synergizes well with the clones. I'm going to illustrate it because all of his command cards work well with the clones. But in this case, Take That Clankers only gives a face-up order to 2 troopers. What I like to do is I like to give it to my 2 heaviest hitting clones, you know, like Z6 with the specialist or the captain, right? And what I like to do in those cases are hopefully, you know, maybe we've scouted forward a little bit. Because a lot of times you're maybe not in shooting range of your opponents on first turn. It just gives you a great option for an alpha strike. Or if it doesn't need to be an alpha strike, or you can use it later in the game if somebody's like, you know, trying to hide out of range or something like that. But what this lets you do is it lets you take that Z6 and turn it into a range 4 weapon as long as they have an aim token. If I can just tap a guy and get a free aim token because of an upgrade, that's great because you're treated as having a face-up order token during your activation. You don't actually flip the token down until the end of your activation. So you can't always, like, at face value, you just say, all right, I'm going to aim and shoot, and I get +1 range. Okay, that's great. And by all means, that is great. But isn't it better if you can move and aim and shoot? Because then what I like to basically do with my phase 1 clones that have a free aim somehow is to if I win the bid too, if I'm going first, is to be able to move, have a free aim token, and now fire. Move forward as far as I can. Now it's almost like that almost turns it into a range 5 Z6. Now I understand that this says maximum range of 4, but if I've also moved, I'm that much closer. So I can, you know, I can hit somebody that would have been range 5 away from me because I moved, and now I also have a longer range. Really, really effective. You know, and then combining that with the fact that hopefully we have a surge token, we've got an aim. Rex probably has an aim also, and hopefully I'm still close enough to him. I can borrow his aim token, so I can spend 2 aims. I can reroll 6 dice if I got scopes. You know, I've shut down people. I've one-shot dewbacks on the first turn this way. I've done lots of really nasty things by using, you know, take that clankers on turn 1. It really allows for some incredible stuff. So that's, you know, that type of alpha strike is really, really strong. And a lot of people thought that maybe only phase 2 clones would be able to do that because they have the training upgrade and all that. No, phase 1s can do it too if you have the phase 1 clone upgrade pack. We're Not Programmed is just generally going to work well because this is another one of Rex's cards. It does give Rex Inspire too. Inspire is going to be good. He only gains it for 1 turn, but if it's late and you got a lot of suppression stacking up, it's good for that. But also this sends face-up tokens to 4 clone troopers, which is pretty nice. And it also lets Rex recover as well. But yeah, this gives you 4 face-ups, so you can do a lot of fire support this way, which is also another option. So this is a really good card. And Call Me Captain is more about Rex than the clones, but I point out that it turns Rex into the fire support machine, and he fire supports constantly. You will want to make sure Rex is out of melee range of any one unit because you know there's 2 ways that really shut Rex down if he's trying to support your clones by using this card. And one way is Dooku with his 2-pip just saying, oh, no, you know what, that token goes back into the box. Now, Rex has fire support, but he can't use it because he doesn't have a face-up order token, so you can't use fire support, right? So that completely erases this card. So you want to make sure Dooku's not close by. And also you want to make sure nobody's close enough to be able to move into melee Rex, because they will try and do that. But if that's the case, now Rex's fire support here is going to do so nasty things because now with those frag grenades, right? You can split fire and Rex can fire support into everybody else. So like I've even gone as crazy as throwing a frag grenade at one unit, throwing a Z6 at another unit, and then having all the rest of the other 3 clones fire at this unit. Rex adds 3 dice to each of them, you know, provided he's in range. But yeah, it's nasty. It's super, super nasty. So that's really cool. Something to keep in mind. Try to have Rex behind a barricade or something if he's going to do this also, just because then it's harder. It's that much harder for somebody to be able to touch his base if he's kind of protected like that. And if you're running Obi-Wan, General Kenobi is actually a particularly good card for clones because it's Kenobi and 2 units, so you're going to have at least 2 clones with face-up order tokens, and it's going to give them surge tokens. And generally with clones, they want to stay kind of close together because you have to be close enough to be able to share tokens. So this gives you lots of surge tokens in the bubble, in the clone bubble, right? So yeah, that's about all I have to say for Phase 1 clones right now. I know that there's probably going to be more things that get announced throughout the year that are going to expand upon ways to build Phase 1 clone troopers. I'm sure we'll get medics at some point, or the generic leaders that can go in any unit, and the comms guys, and all of that stuff. I actually look forward, if they follow the model that they did with the other factions, and we do have, you know, a comm trooper that can give them like HQ uplink. That will be really, really, really strong, because I have a feeling if you can put HQ uplink on clones and be able to have them all have face-up order tokens, that's going to be extremely powerful. Extremely powerful. And I probably wouldn't do it on all, but I'd probably run 3 of them with HQ uplink if I could. That'd be really nasty. But I guess we'll have to see. Especially for take that clankers. Especially for take that clankers. You're talking about, like, you could just... There might exist the possibility if you just win the game on turn 1. Just win. Like, oh, I killed 3/4 of your list on turn 1. You want to concede? You know, like, that could potentially happen with the right combination. So it really... I'm anxious to see what comes next for Phase 1 clones. And... presumably would also be more stuff for Phase 2 clones. But if you only have the Phase 1s, there's still a lot of stuff. You're still going to be restricted by only having the 1 courage and not getting a free surge token. But like we've seen, there's lots of other ways to get surge tokens. You know, you do have to deal with only the 1 courage, so you have to be careful about that. But they can be almost as good as Phase 2 clones. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you today. I want to thank you so much for watching. Big thanks to all my patrons on Patreon. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Stay tuned for more videos. I want to thank you so much. And as always, have a great day.